By 1966, the United States is losing manpower in Vietnam at an unsustainable rate. The military is facing a critical troop shortage as the demand for jungle-ready replacements begins to outpace the results of the standard draft. Managing this crisis is Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara. Before his time at the Pentagon, McNamara was a senior executive at the Ford Motor Company. His reputation was built on analyzing data, optimizing complex factory systems, and balancing budgets through cold, hard mathematics. Historically, military rules prohibited the recruitment of Category 4 and 5 individuals. These recruits fell into an IQ range of 70 to 80. Decades of data indicated that soldiers in this range struggled to adapt, learn, or survive in the unpredictable chaos of a battlefield. McNamara viewed war as an engineering problem that could be solved through factory logic. He believed that even the most complex human endeavors could be broken down into repeatable, optimized processes. From McNamara's perspective, soldiers were interchangeable units. They were numbers on a spreadsheet that needed balancing to keep the war machine running. To bridge the manpower gap, McNamara applied a factory model to the infantry. High IQ officers would serve as the brain, handling all strategic thinking. The lower IQ recruits would serve as the hands, tasked with executing standard operating procedures with robotic precision. This theory led to the launch of Project 100,000. The Department of Defense officially lowered its mental standards, specifically targeting the recruitment of Category 4 and 5 individuals who were previously deemed unfit for service. To justify the decision, McNamara promised the public that the military would act as a tool for cognitive improvement. He cited recent laboratory studies where rats developed more complex brains when forced to navigate intricate, difficult mazes, claiming the rigors of service would increase the men's intelligence and improve their future. On paper, the model appeared to be a masterpiece of efficiency. It offered the military a massive supply of bodies while providing a path for social advancement. The spreadsheet model met its end in the jungles of Vietnam, in an environment where every tree could hide a threat. The rigid theory of automated execution collapsed. This chart shows the heavy cost of the experiment. Compared to regular troops, Project 100,000 recruits suffered 3 times the death rate. Their rates of severe mental trauma were 5 times higher, and friendly fire incidents involving these units doubled. Commanders noticed a strange gap in performance. These recruits were often capable of completing structured training drills. However, they quickly struggled when they had to apply those lessons under the shifting pressure of live combat. Commanders led men who were brave and disciplined, yet paralyzed by the speed of the jungle. McNamara's model had omitted the hard biological limits of human cognition. A combat zone throws sucks or southern complex variables at a soldier at once. They track the direction of gunfire, navigate uneven terrain, process radio commands, and the location of their teammates, all within seconds. Processing this chaos requires fluid intelligence. This is handled by the frontoparietal network, the part of the brain that makes sense of new, unorganized information. A high IQ brain utilizes its working memory to chunk these 6 or 7 variables into 3 or 4 manageable concepts. This allows the soldier to ignore the noise and make a rapid decision. But a lower IQ brain has a tighter biological bottleneck. Its working memory is physically capped upholding just 2 or 3 isolated variables. There is no room for consolidation. Then comes the stress multiplier. Fear and panic trigger a physiological response that slashes working memory capacity by up to 50% for all humans. For a high IQ soldier, this drop is manageable. But for a recruit starting with a low baseline, their mental capacity effectively hits 0. When working memory reaches 0, cognitive overload sets in. Men froze in place or fired their weapons blindly because their brains were physically incapable of processing the environment. Biology rejected McNamara's rigid procedures. After the war, researchers looked for the upgrade McNamara had promised. They wanted to see if the rigors of combat had finally raised the soldiers' IQs. Long-term studies found 0 evidence of cognitive improvement. Instead, the trauma of combat shattered their mental bandwidth, leaving them with fewer cognitive resources than when they started. Compared to peers who never deployed, these survivors suffered significantly lower employment rates and higher rates of substance abuse. The social uplift program had resulted in a lifetime of instability. Even worse, the military institution often denied these men the pensions and support they needed. They were discarded by the same system that had drafted them into a war it knew they were unlikely to survive. The system failed these men twice. First, by sending them into an environment where they were biologically disadvantaged, and second, by abandoning them once they returned home broken. Institutions are drawn to numbers and data because they provide a sense of predictability. They make a messy world feel manageable from behind a desk. But human biology does not respond to a spreadsheet. The brain has unyielding limits that data points cannot override. Project 100,000 serves as a warning. When powerful systems rely on abstract models that ignore biological realities, they don't optimize efficiency. They manufacture tragedy.